Welcome to the Guild of Experience Fashion Textile Workshop on behalf of Studio 3 Art. My name's Sba and I'm a textile artist. Just to recap from our last session, we made some sash using pre-cut wooden blocks and made some musical note stamps which were then printed onto the sash. So here are some examples of the sash. That was a bit of a tongue tie, by the way, but you could see the three colours that were chosen were this kind of pinky colour, this kind of bluey green colour, and this mustardy yellow. The ones that you're going to get in your packs are going to be more towards the flyer colour base, because we thought that it would be nice to have a colour palette. Now this piece of fabric, this sash, is quite interesting because the actual person printing these were thinking about pattern. Now that's quite a big forte of mine because that's what I teach little people in at William Morris Gallery, how to create a pattern. But what they block printed it one way, and then what they did is the other way, they printed it the other way round. Now, if this was worn as a sash, the images would be upside down. So if you're going to do any kind of printing with faces or letters and you want it to be a certain way, just try and make sure you place it across yourself and just check how the pattern's forming. The other thing is that my overlocker's not working, so I wasn't able to edge any of the sash, so I'm waiting for that to happen. And then so the ones that are in your pack, they won't be overlocked, but if you have the three colours at home and you have an overlocker, please be my guest and actually overlock them. So here's another sash. Again, you can see they've used the pre-cut blocks, and someone, like I said, made a block with the musical note on them. So you can be random but be logical at the same time. When you're making a pattern, just think about if you had a piece of fabric from a roll of fabric and you've cut a piece out. So the pattern goes off the page, as we say. So it doesn't matter that your blocks are gone off the sides. So don't be too constructed by the edges of the fabric. If you feel you need to go off, you can do, but like we always say, it's your design and your print, so you can do whatever you like to do. But just take into consideration there needs to be a format, a formation for the pattern to flow. Again, when you're looking at fabrics and pattern for fashion, how it sits on the body and which way around it is. The second part of this video will be going through what's in your packs, how to use them briefly, and then the final part of this video will consist of actually using the materials, if you wish, in your pack and actually creating your sash. In your creative packs, you will receive a few things. All your components, which will be in one bag, your ink, your foil trays, which will act as your ink pad, and then your actual fabric. So all the fabric for this project will be in this bag here. So I'm just going to put this away. So let me go through what's in your pack in detail. So you've got your plastic, you've got your sticky back sponge, you've got your wooden blocks and a stick, some musical notes as templates, wooden spatulas, a brush, your inks, you have your fold trays with the fabric required to act as your ink pad. You've got your fabric here. Now I apologise about the edges here. Like I said earlier, my overlocker is not working, but you'll need to iron this flat before you use it. Then you've got your scrap piece of fabric here that you can experiment and test your block printing on. I've also incorporated in your pack some gems. I know they're not quite the colour palette, but these are the closest I could get. You can actually draw the musical notes and stick them down in the form of your musical notes. So you can bling it up really if you wanted to, and the glue's included as well. So just be careful, because as we know with Yoo-hoo, it goes everywhere, so you just need a little bit on your fabric and just let it kind of go off a bit, and then just stick your bead on top. Then you have an embroidery hoop for anyone who would like to do some embroidery. The needle's in there, and then you would have to split the thread up to do some embroidery on there. Again, you can use your notes, and you can do just a basic running stitch to do your notes onto your sash. I will go into detail with a few other bits and pieces. I've also incorporated some gloves which I found in my creative mess upstairs. So how this works is, what you would do is you would draw your design, or in this case your musical note at the back, cut it out, and then you would just stick it on the back. So this is actually sticky back. Your wooden blocks, now if you can see, this is quite deep here. So this is easy to wash and clean out, but with this one, although these are new, the depth isn't that deep from your actual raised bits to the lower bits. So what I've done is incorporated a stick in your pack, so you can actually dig everything out if need be. Or if you've got an old toothbrush, you can scrub the block. But with these blocks, because the depth isn't that deep here, you have to be careful so they don't start wearing away so quickly. Also to hand, you should have is 2 pieces of fabric or scraps of fabric or old tea towels, one damp and one dry, just to have to hand, so you can actually wipe your wooden blocks down if need be. Like I said, this one's not too much of a problem compared to this. So the next part of the video will be the actual printing. This part of the video, you'll be making your ink pads, doing some testing on your fabric, on your calico. You can see someone's already done some testing here in our last session. They're actually playing around with pattern as well as getting a feel of the block. And then you'll be also making your final sash and printing your final sash. But first things first is make sure your area is nice and clean, and it's covered with either a dust sheet or an old duvet cover or an old flat sheet. Secondly, make sure you're covered, so you've got an old overall or t-shirt, because we shall be using fabric ink and they will make a mark because they're designed to. However, to fully make them washable, is you would have to iron them with the iron, but because it's got like the yellow in particular and the pink, they will stain. So even if you haven't fixed the piece of fabric and you wash it, these will definitely stain. I just don't trust inks or paints regardless, so always make sure you've got your old work overalls on if you've got any, or just discard an old shirt. So let's put these aside for a second. So what you do is, I've put in your pack some of these cut up tea towels, and these being brilliant, so you make sure they're just damp. I don't know if you can see, but it's quite damp. You don't need to wring it out, it just needs to be damp. You place this into your tray like that, I'm just going to use one colour for the purpose of this workshop. Now I'm going to go for the vibrant pink here. So what you do is you get one spatula and then just give it a good old whirl and a mix, because although I've created the packs, there might be some ink in the corner. Now this is smelly stuff as well, so what I advise you to do is, if you can, is open the window, or now as we all have masks, put your mask on. Just protect yourself. So I've just scooped some over and I'm just going to spread it onto the piece of fabric. I'll just show you in a second. As you can see, I'm holding the fabric while I spread it. I need it to kind of soak the fabric so it acts like an ink pad. So I don't know if you all remember the ink pads we used to have. This is a version of that, more a DIY version of that, because I have got the original stuff, but with that you need a lot of ink in there and there would be a lot of wastage. So this is a good way of making a ink pad. And then you can always wash this piece of fabric out. So I think that should be fine. I have got ink on my fingers, but like I said, always keep a cloth around. So I've got my scrap fabric or my old tea towel here, just to wipe your fingers down. And then put your spatula and pot aside. If it wants to close, there we are. And then you're ready to start printing. Next, so I'm going to get my scrap piece of fabric, and I've got my tray here. I'm going to get this circular wooden stamp. I'm going to just dab it in there in my ink pad. Sometimes you'll get excess ink, but that doesn't matter. That's why you have your scrap piece of fabric. Now with this, because this is like a normal, not a normal, but this is like a stamp that you can hold with your fingers, you can easily push down the stamp. Now you can actually use the blocks in your pack to then create a pattern. I mean, the idea is to print, stamp, print, stamp, print, stamp, print, and so forth on. Now with these wooden blocks, you would have to do some experimenting with these, but like I said, the grooves aren't that deep, so hopefully this will work. I'm still using the same ink because I don't want to use the other colours just for an example. So as you can see, I'm just stamping it in my palette here, and it's all covered. Now I'm just going to make sure I've got everything covered. I can see a little bit that's not. So I'm going to just make sure everything's covered. The best way to block print from experience is unfortunately standing up, because you use your upper body weight and you're leaning into block printing. So what I do is I push down using both hands, but a good old whack twice should do the trick and you get a print. Now what's happened here is there wasn't enough ink on my block at the top end. So what I'm going to do, that means my ink's drying up or finishing. So what I'm going to do now is just top up the ink in my palette. Don't want to waste. Hence doing one colour, just so I can show you as an example. This can get messy, but hey, that's the fun part of being creative and doing creative activities. So I'm gonna put this aside. Again, load my block up with ink. Now, if you feel you've got too much ink on your block, you can always dab it somewhere else. And remember, I was telling you about the stick, the idea of the stick, so you can actually get the access out of the groove. So now I'm going to try it with this one. Again, I'm going to place my block in the tray and then again push down and give it a thump, and you'll get a nice clear print then. Unfortunately, the best way to block print is to stand up, because you need your upper body weight to lean in and give it a good thud. If you're finding giving it a good thud hard, sorry, my hands are quite dry, just use a mallet or a rolling pin and just tap it on the top. Just mind your fingers, so just kind of be careful the way you're doing this. Some of the blocks might just work without you giving a thud, but normally when you're doing block printing, and how traditionally it's done in India, is you would give it a good thud to get the ink right into the fabric. So I'm going to show you how this works using this block, and if I just hand paint the actual ink on the block. So just bear with me while I do this. Now the thing with painting it is you won't get an even flat surface either, so you'll get the brush strokes. Some areas will be thicker, certain areas will be flat or flush to the actual sponge at the bottom, as you can see now. Now if that happens, which it shouldn't, well, it will happen actually, if that happens, just dab it lightly, but I've actually put in thinner brushes, not thick brushes, so you get nice thin brush strokes as well into your packs. So let's give this a go. Let's push this down. Not too hard that it breaks the plastic, but because I've given you a thicker sponge, it's going to be a bit more durable than this example I'm giving you. And you get a print. Now you can see there's a slight bleed here, but it's printed the brush strokes on there quite nicely. And then you could use another colour and do your 2 dots there, or if you don't want to and you want to use your artistic brush skills, you can always draw or paint the 2 circles or dots next to this note. So I'm just doing this as an example, but like I said, you can be as flexible as you want. You can also do is actually get your block and press it into your palette. Now hopefully, I mean, like you could see, because the sponge isn't thick enough, you're not getting it all covered, or the background might get covered as well. So you can see here the background's getting covered. So I'm just going to wipe it down with my cloth, my trusty cloth, and then I'll just show you what will happen. So you can actually use your palette here and your Corex block to actually block print as well. But as I said earlier, because the sponge provided in your pack is much thicker, you won't get this happening here or here. Some people find it easier to block print like this. Some might want to block print like this. It's entirely up to you how you want to do your design. You can either go off the fabric, or you can create a border and be constrained within the lines here. I'm just going to do something just to show you how it starts forming into a pattern. Okay, so how am I going to do it? So I'm going to do a border, but I'm going to go off page or off fabric. And then I might twist it a little bit. And if you notice that each time I print, I actually load my block up. So you can see, if I was to carry this on, I might actually show you to give you the idea that it's gone off fabric or off page. Is then you get the idea of your design going off, and then once you edge it, it seems like you've cut the fabric from a printed piece of cloth. But like I said, it's your design, how you want to create it. If you feel, no, I don't want to do it like that, I want to keep it within the edges, it's entirely up to you. So once this is all printed, the next final stage will be to iron it on a high heat without burning it, of course, because it's cotton. So you would have to wait till it's touch dry. So I would just leave it to hang over the chair or over the door is quite good. Just be careful you don't get ink everywhere, and leave it to dry, and then iron it, and then that should be fixed. And if you wanted to work further into it, you can always do the embroidery and add your gems onto it. I hope you enjoyed the workshop and it's been a bit informative, and stay safe at home, I suppose.